All right, good afternoon. We will now resume our full council session, and we now move on to our public hearings, and we start with item number 5. This is a public hearing regarding the downtown Silver Spring overlay zone. Fed committee work session will be scheduled at a later date. There are 3 speakers for this public hearing. First, we will hear from Chair of our Montgomery County Planning Board, Mr. Casey Anderson. I remind everybody that you have 2 minutes to testify, and I think there is a timer. Yes, there is, and it says 4 minutes.
No, because he's doing 2.
Got it, because you're doing 2. Fantastic. So
I won't take all 4 right. Or even 2. This is the overlay zone to implement the downtown Silver Spring plan that you all just adopted. It is modified somewhat from the original version in order to accommodate some of the decisions that the Council and Fed Committee made about the density allocation as opposed to height and density being available from sources other than the mapped density that ordinarily would be provided as part of a master plan, and some of the other public benefit provisions, which are similar to Bethesda. You could sort of call this BOS Light or BOS 2.0 because it was based on a lot of the ideas that were in the Bethesda downtown plan, but they're adapted, I think, to the economic reality of downtown Silver Spring, as well as some of the specific objectives that the Planning Board and Council identified that are specific to where Silver Spring is. So with that, we urge your support of the CTA and look forward to working with Fed and then coming back to the Council to get that implemented.
thank you very much, Chairman Anderson. Our next speaker is Abdulaziz Kamouz. Is Mr. Kamouz here? No. Our third speaker is Altaf Lakhani. Anywhere, yeah. You just want to hit the button to speak. So, got it. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. I'm Altaf Lakhani, and my concerns with this being implemented is that I have a few locations in this Silver Spring area that I own, and they're close to each other, so I can transfer density. The issue would be that if this provision prevails, that the density transfer, the value will go down substantially. So I'm opposed to that. So my concerns are, they're worth about a few $1 million that I would lose if this happens. So I'm against that. So I just wanted to voice that opinion.
Thank you. Thank you. You are on the record in opposition. Oh, Councilmember Reamer has a question.
Just wanted to ask you, sir, so that's because now property owners could buy density from the county, and before didn't have that option, so they would buy from a nearby property owner such as yourself? Is that
Yes, so there are 2 properties that I have, and one is directly across from the Purple Line Silver Spring stop. So for last 5-6 years, including Bazzuto was involved in this, wanting to buy density from a adjoining location of mine, which they could do, and they would pay $55 a square foot. If this passes, they could just get it for $5 a square foot. So it reduces the value of my property drastically.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Is Abdulaziz Kamouz here? No. All right, that is it for our public speakers for ZTA 2203. That public hearing is now closed. We now move on to the 6th item on the agenda, which is a public hearing regarding ZTA 2202, density and height limits parking, biohealth. A Fed committee work session will also be scheduled at a later date. There are 3 speakers for this public hearing. We start with Mr. Bob Dalrymple.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Dalrymple. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Selzer Gerbich, speaking to you virtually on behalf of Stonebridge. Thank you for accommodating me. I've also submitted written testimony into the record, which you should have. This zoning text amendment originally was broader than the form in which it's in currently. It has been amended. It previously provided for opportunities for bioscience, health campuses, and some broader issues which have been addressed in other manners, including the previous item with the Silver Spring overlay. The ZTA that's before you now and that we are supporting is targeting urban properties for bioscience tenants. The key elements to it are really allowing for balancing to allow full commercial use of the FAR, the mapped FAR for property, and also to allow increased building height due to the need for higher floor-to-ceiling floors for bioscience tenants. It's specifically limited to properties with mapped height or averaged height of 100 feet or less, allowing a multiplier by 1.5 times, which is really allowing for the sweet spot to address the needs of bioscience tenants. This is another tool in the toolbox for the county to continue to attract the bioscience industry to the county. And we ask for your favorable consideration of this text amendment to allow even more opportunities to come along. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dalrymple. We have Chairman Anderson here, who is going to speak to this item as well. Chairman Anderson.
We support the ZTA. We appreciate the sponsor's leadership. We think it's good.
All right. Luckily, he's not paid by the word, everyone. All right. Thank you very much, Chairman Anderson. Next, we have on our list Carolina Medrano. Is Ms. Medrano here? No. Next, we have Doug Furstenberg.
Doug Furstenberg, Stonebridge, for the record. Council President, all the members, great to see you, and actually person. It's a nice thing to come back. The security's changed since the last time I was here, so I was almost late. I can't be as quick as the chairman was, but we think this is an important ZTA. As a lot of you know, we're very active in the urban development in the county, and we want to create urban opportunities for the life sciences tenants. We think that's the future of life sciences and the growth we're going to see. This ZTA really allows for two things. One is it allows, in particular in White Flint, the segregation of the residential and the commercial use to now be blended and be able to capture all the FAR in one use. It's a new planning tool. It wasn't really used and looked at that way. So now we can, go all of the mapped density in a commercial basis, which will be great. And two, we do need the additional height. This is a very particular type of user. We need much larger floor to ceilings to make it work. This ZT really addresses those two things. We think this will be used extensively in the White Flint area in particular, and we will certainly be using it with our first project that we're trying to do in North Bethesda. Happy to answer any questions. Appreciate all the sponsors' work and the co-sponsors, and hopefully we'll expeditiously add this to the county's toolkit for life sciences. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Furstenberg. Again, is Ms. Carolina Medrano here? No. All right. That is it for our speakers for this public hearing. This public hearing is now closed. We move on to item number 7, which is a public hearing in action. This is a supplemental appropriation number 22-90 to the county government's FY22 operating budget, Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service Emergency Service Transporter Supplemental Payment Program in the amount of $2,170,850. Source of funds is Emergency Service Transporter Supplemental Payment Program. There are no speakers for this public hearing, and so this public hearing is now closed. Can I get a motion to accept this appropriation? So moved. Moved by Councilmember Katz, seconded by Councilmember Jawando. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous among all those present. We now move on to item number 8. This is also a public hearing in action. This is a supplemental appropriation to the county government's FY22 operating budget, Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service, Montgomery County Career Firefighter Association, International Association of Firefighters, Local 1664, in the amount of $26,965 for FY22 general wage adjustment. Source of funds, undesignated fire fund reserves. There are no speakers for this public hearing, and so this public hearing is now closed. Can I get a motion to accept this special appropriation? Supplemental appropriation. So moved by Councilmember Katz, seconded by Councilmember Rice. Any discussion? No? All those in favor of this supplemental appropriation, please raise your hands. That is once again unanimous among all those present. That takes us on to item number 9. This is also a public hearing in action, supplemental appropriation to the county government's FY22 capital budget and amendment to the FY21 through 26 capital improvements program. Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service in the amount of $534,000 for heart monitor and defibrillator replacement. Source of funds, current revenue fire. There are no speakers for this public hearing, and so this public hearing is now closed. Can I get a motion to accept this supplemental appropriation? Moved by Councilmember Katz, seconded by Councilmember Jawando. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that is once again unanimous among all those present. That takes us on to item number 10. This is also public hearing in action, supplemental appropriation to the county government's FY22 operating budget, Montgomery County Public Schools, in the amount of $1,452,023 for school safety grant program. Source of funds is state funds. There are no speakers for this public hearing, and so this public hearing is also now closed. Can I get a motion to accept this supplemental appropriation? So moved by Councilmember Rice, seconded by Councilmember Katz. No discussion. All those in favor, please raise your hands. That is unanimous among all those present. And that takes us on to item number 11. Okay, this is also a public hearing in action, a special appropriation to the county government's FY22 operating budget, Arts and Humanities Council of Montgomery County Non-Departmental Account Business Assistance Program, Arts COVID-19 ARPA Relief Funds, in the amount of $2,750,000 of funds are federal funds. There are no speakers for this public hearing, and so this public hearing is now closed. Can I get a motion to accept this special appropriation? So moved by Councilmember Rice, seconded by Councilmember Friedson. No discussion. All those in favor, please raise your hands. That is unanimous among all those present. You're welcome. So that moves us on to item number 12. This is supplemental appropriation number 22-88 to the county government's FY22 operating budget and amendment to the FY21 through 26 capital improvements program. Montgomery County Government, Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Services, MCFRS, Goody Drive Community Services Building, number 452202, in the amount of $500,000. The source of funds is current revenue fire. There are no speakers for this public hearing, and so this public hearing is now closed. Can I get a motion to accept this supplemental appropriation? So moved by Councilmember Katz, seconded by Council Vice President Glass. No discussion. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous among all those present. Great. I need a speaker list for item number 13. Oh, here it is. Sorry. I had it here. Thank you. All right, thank you. That takes us on to item number 13, which is a public hearing in action. This is a special appropriation to the county government's FY22 operating budget, Department of Police COVID-19 ARPA relief funds in the amount of $731,125. The source of funds are the federal aid. We have 4 speakers for this public hearing. I'll note upon completion of this public hearing, we do have speakers on behalf of the executive branch who are here to provide an overview and an update on this particular request and be able to respond directly to questions from colleagues about the status of it. So we have 4 public speakers signed up. The first public speaker is Mr. Dalbin Osorio, who will be testifying virtually. Dalbin? Dalvin, do you hear us? Oh, I'm getting a note that he is not present. Next, we will hear from Robert Vega. You're on mute, Mr. Vega.
Can you hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Okay, thanks. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Robert Vega, and I am testifying on behalf of Silver Spring Justice Coalition against the allocation of the $731,000 plus to the ARPA funds for gun violence prevention to the Montgomery County Police Department. Most of the funds will be spent on the so-called Violent Crime Information Center, aka 4 more cops who will analyze data collected through established systems which have always been biased against black and brown communities. The police will use this unreliable and biased data for the continued over-incarceration of our communities. During the pandemic year of 2021, gun violence doubled from an average of 17 cases per year to 35. The idea that data for this one-year outlier requires drastic surveillance is nonsense. Montgomery County still has low crime and gun violence stats and is a safe place to live. The funding is simply a way to hire more police and promote traditional racist policing practices under the guise of focused deterrence. Furthermore, during this pandemic period, Montgomery County's law enforcement has also had an increase in police gun violence. There have been as many as 24 police involved in the killing of Montgomery County residents, of which many were preventable through a mental health crisis response. So where is the focused deterrence for this situation? ARPA sanctions the use of these funds for positive, community-based, non-carceral interventions that have been proven to reduce gun violence. The county should promote and advance such programs by allocating these funds through the Department of Health and Human Services, which is responsible for all violence-related public health matters, rather than Montgomery County Police Department, which lacks accountability, transparency, and trust in black and brown communities. Similarly, Montgomery County Family Justice Center and Domestic Violence Coordinating Council should directly receive any remaining funds to increase advertising and outreach. These services will address intimate partner and domestic violence, which has increased during the pandemic as well. In closing, the ARPA funds are intended to help people recover rather than find more ways to lock us up.
Thank you.
Thank the council for its time, and hopefully we'll consider these recommendations in our testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vega. Next, we will hear from Michael Rubin.
Good afternoon, members of the council and fellow community members. My name is Michael Rubin, Interim Executive Director at Impact Silver Spring. As you make your decisions about how to allocate $27.5 million of ARPA funding, I want to encourage you to prioritize funding for those most impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Although ARPA allows for funding innovative responses to increase pandemic-related violent crime, I encourage you to reconsider whether this $731,000 appropriation to the MCPD is the right thing to do at this point in time, given how widespread are the pain and negative effects of the pandemic in our community. Impact is an organizational member of the Silver Spring Justice Coalition, and we are aligned with their statement in opposition to this proposed funding. Adding a gun violence intelligence and surveillance unit is inconsistent with the legislative intent of ARPA. Add funds to focus on the root causes of increased violence. Increase funding for food distribution at the county's successful and innovative service consolidation hubs that might actually contribute to addressing root causes of violent crime rather than this proposed expenditure. If you feel the need to provide additional ARPA-funded support to important efforts such as the Street Outreach Network, the Family Justice Center, the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council, and a new youth basketball program, then do so directly. I do not understand why this funding needs to go to the MCPD when you already have government departments and community organizations who have the expertise and are already doing the work. To close, let me just state that the ARPA funding provides us a unique and likely only a one-time opportunity to fund initiatives to support those most adversely affected by the pandemic and its continued and ongoing impacts. Please consider wisely whether funding proposals such as this one for the MCPD are really the right thing to do at this time. We accomplished much as a county in our response to the pandemic, but we are not out of the woods yet. Let's learn from how we innovated to meet the challenges that COVID-19 brought to our community and not return to business as usual. This proposal feels too much like trying to spread a little ARPA funding to everyone and not being strategic about this important one-time funding opportunity. Do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Heidi Rhodes. Not yet. There you go.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Heidi Rhodes, and I live in Colesville, Maryland. I was an analyst for the National Security Agency for over 30 years before retiring and joining the work of Jews United for Justice. Today, I am testifying on behalf of JUFJ against the special appropriation for the police department from the COVID-19 ARPA relief funds. My Jewish tradition teaches that we should not put a stumbling block before the blind. We must proactively remove the barriers that prevent members of our community from thriving in our county. Instead of mitigating the barriers of poverty, lack of housing, and disinvestment in public health, this special appropriation further invests in programs that may lead to overcriminalization of our county's BIPOC communities. Reducing gun violence is about so much more than policing and criminalization. The Treasury Department recognized this when suggesting a range of non-carceral approaches for ARPA funds. The Council's proposed special appropriation ignores this holistic approach and continues an outdated insistence on policing as the primary way to address gun violence. There is no reason for the programs in this request to be funded through MCPD. The money should go directly to the Street Outreach Network, the Family Justice Center, and the Recreation Department. I am deeply concerned by the proposal for the Violent Crime Information Center. In my previous career, I too often saw analysis of data sets of incomplete and biased data being used to make life-changing decisions, and that is my fear for the VCIC. What data is going to be analyzed? Police reports coming from already over-policed black and brown communities? Will data include gun seizures from cars? Well, we know that black drivers make up 50% of traffic stops, though there are only 20% of our county's population. Will the results from the analysis lead to more no-knock warrants and the unnecessary criminalization of more individuals? Ultimately, data proves that the best way to prevent crime and violence is to address the underlying issues that lead to crime, such as mental health and stable housing. Instead, this special appropriation has the potential to lead to more police involvement where it doesn't belong, to more decisions being made based on analysis of faulty data sets, and to more harm and trauma. Thank you.
Mr. Osorio, have you been able to join us? Mr. Osorio? Okay, that is it for our speakers for this public hearing. This public hearing is now closed. And I'd like to invite members of the executive branch forward to sit at the dais along with Ms. Farag. Thank you all very much. Let me provide just a little bit of context and background, and let me begin by thanking the members of the community for coming and speaking this afternoon and expressing their concerns and questions. I also want to thank our Police Advisory Commission, whom I had the opportunity to speak to last night virtually over their deliberations over this important issue. For a little bit of background and context, about 6 months ago, we had received numerous concerns raised by a number of members in the community regarding a significant rise in crime that we were seeing across the board. We had a public hearing to discuss the rise in crime issues, and there was also a closed-door session before the council to talk about some sensitive matters with regards to some of the rising crime rates across our community. This, unfortunately, follows a trend nationally coming out of the pandemic that we are seeing that's endemic of the ongoing challenges directly as a result of the struggles that our families have faced during and after the pandemic. Last year, Montgomery County Police confiscated 523 guns, 72 of which were PMFs. These are privately manufactured firearms, or also known as ghost guns. So far this year alone, Montgomery County Police have confiscated more than 727 guns, 105 of which are privately manufactured firearms, and we still have 6 months to go left in this particular year. We saw a 40% rise in gun sales during the pandemic, and we have also seen a significant increase across the board in illegal firearms that have entered into our streets in a manner which is terrifying. This is almost the 1-year anniversary from a 14-year-old boy who took the life of a 21-year-old young man in front of his 13-year-old and 9-year-old brother on the courts of the Plumgar Community Center. And as we saw at Magruder High School, we have also seen a rash of incidences that have understandably raised concerns for a number of us. I've been in the positive youth development space for more than 20 years, and I have had the opportunity to work with a number of my colleagues throughout the community right now, and all of us have expressed deep concern over what we're seeing in the community right now. I had the opportunity on Friday to attend the first Summer of Peace event organized by the Street Outreach Network, which was an extraordinary effort that will undergo all through the entire summer of trying to provide safe places for our children, youth, and families to be able to gather and have fun and engage. And we absolutely have to address the root causes of these issues. And when you look at the line items that were passed in the budget that we passed 2 weeks ago, they included the expansion of wellness centers in all of our high schools, the expansion of mental health services and behavioral health services, an expansion of out-of-school time programs and services, all of which we need much more of. But we do also need to recognize what is happening on the ground right now. And so I know that there have been some recent personnel issues within Montgomery County Police, and the civilian assistant chief who had been testifying in favor of these funds and had originally requested much more than this, and the underlying concerns that have been raised in the transition as we go through this personnel issue have also raised concerns about the status of this program and service and these particular line items. So I want to thank the executive branch on short notice for coming to us today to respond to questions that my colleagues understandably have about the status of this particular initiative. But I will now turn it over to Ms. Farag to provide us with a little bit more context and background, and then I will actually turn it over to Dr. Stoddard to talk more specifically about the efforts of the executive branch as a whole to address some of the rising violence issues that we're seeing across the board in our community. And we have representatives from MCPD here who can answer questions specifically with regards to line items with what has been presented. But one question has been raised, Ms. Farag, that I'd like you to incorporate into your comments, and that is why we're using ARPA funds for this, as opposed to why it has been requested that we use ARPA funds for this. And maybe Dr. Stoddard, you're in a better position to respond to that. But that has been a fundamental question that has been raised both by colleagues as well as the members of the community. Ms. Farag, I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. When Council directed Council staff to work with our various departments in order to come up with proposals for ARPA funding, Carlos Camacho and I, former analyst here, worked with the Assistant Chief in the Community Resources Bureau to come up with some public safety issues, with programs that address the public safety issues that Silver Spring in particular is encountering, as well as the US 29 corridor. When the Community Resources Bureau provided their proposal to us, it was actually about $7 million for a year. It was pretty obvious right off the bat that at least half of it was not eligible for ARPA funding from the get-go, so that whittled it down to about $3.5 million. And I further refined that to meet two objectives of mine. One is that every policy or program that's proffered today is an evidence-based program. And the second one was, to the extent possible, to get to the root causes of violence and address the root causes of violence. And there has to be an enforcement component in the police department, and to the extent that there is enforcement, that it is narrowly focused on the people who are actually committing the violent crime, so that it avoids, to the extent possible, the historic harm, community harm that's been done from over-policing. So this really narrowly tailors using data synthesis, real-time crime analysis, to the people who are committing the violence. And there are national studies that show about 1% of communities can commit up to 50 to 60% of the violence in that community, right? So it's not most people are law abiding. We don't want to bother them. We want to focus and deal with suppressing the violence that our community is experiencing. You ask why it's ARPA funding. The ARPA funding is available for the pandemic-related community violence that we're experiencing now. It may not necessarily, I really hope it doesn't continue past real recovery from COVID when we get back to much closer to normal. I hope it doesn't. But all of these programs are pilot project programs, even though they're evidence-based. Those studies that are done elsewhere are very informative, but not necessarily determinative to what's going to happen in Montgomery County. So when you apply it to the Montgomery County situation, we can track what's happening and whether or not these programs are effective. It makes use of Montgomery County Police Department's long-term partnerships with other departments and community partners in the area, Department of Recreation, for example, the Family Justice Center, Domestic Violence Coordinating Council, and the hospital navigator positions with Street Outreach Network. They've had a long-time partnership with them as far as doing violence interruption.
Thank you. I have a number of colleagues that have questions and comments. Dr. Stoddard, I'm going to ask you to provide some context and overview, and then I'm going to turn to colleagues to ask those questions. I'll go through the list in just a second, colleagues.
Thank you, Council President, members of the County Council. I appreciate being before you again today on a different topic. Always a pleasure to be here twice in one day. On this topic, so a few things. Number one, I think we largely agree with much of the testimony that was made about this having to be a multidisciplinary process, and frankly, much more focused on addressing the root causes. As Council President Elmer has alluded to, many of the long-term causes, food insecurity, the inequity that we experience economically. Many of these issues are addressed in the existing capital and operating budgets because they are going to be long-standing programs that we know need to be maintained for a long period of time, and they've rightly been placed, the consolidation hubs and other efforts placed in the operating budget, expecting that they will be operated for a long period of time. We expect that, or we hope that, as Ms. Farag alluded to, that many of the efforts around violence, particularly youth violence and youth self-harm and the other issues associated with that, are not necessarily going to be the same long-term as some of the other challenges that we face with the root causes of some of the challenges that we face. And so I think my reputation is one that I build bridges. We often, within the executive branch, I tend to play a big role in making sure, as both as the emergency manager and now in my role in the county executive's office, of bringing people together, forming multidisciplinary groups, and addressing problems in a holistic way. And so I think it is entirely reasonable to suggest that every department that's been mentioned, recreation, health and human services, some of the community advocacy groups, some of the nonprofit partners, all play a huge role in addressing the current situation we find ourselves in with youth mental health, youth violence, family violence, and the police department is part of that team. They are absolutely part of the team. And so some of the things that they do are unique to the police department, but they need to be well integrated into a whole system of opportunities that we bring forward. And so to that end, we're actually forming a youth harm intervention team, which is largely based on the opioid intervention team that we developed years ago to address the opioid crisis, with the intention for it to be a short-term or whatever the term needs to be to address the specific problem we find ourselves in with this pandemic-related increase in youth violent crime, but also the increase in youth harm and mental health issues that we experience. The police department will not be solving youth mental health issues, but they are part of the question of youth violence and youth self-harm because they often respond to these incidents. And so they are part of the team, and we believe that they should appropriately receive some part of the funding to address the police-related matters. But this is part of a collective effort that will be addressed through a whole holistic model going forward. And so I want to make clear to both the community members and to the county council that certainly my role as co-chairing this youth intervention team with Sonia Morrow on the second floor at the executive's office is to make it a multidisciplinary process to address this as a holistic model. I've already heard from Director Riley at Recreations that she's facing challenges addressing all of the increased requests for additional supports that she's seeing through these youth harm initiatives and the ongoing summer work that they have to do. And so we're trying to provide a broad array of services through a partnership with other departments that doesn't just overly or disproportionately burden one department like HHS or Recreation in a particular area. And so we're trying to make this an all-hands-on-deck approach to addressing youth harm collectively, and we view this proposal as being a necessary part of the resources that we're going to need to effectively do this.
Thank you very much. All right, I've got Councilmember Rice, followed by Councilmember Jawando, then Councilmember Katz, and then Councilmember Friedson.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. I don't know where to start here, but it always frustrates me when I hear people testify on behalf of communities that they haven't talked to, nor are they a part of. The majority of the issues that we are seeing are happening in my district, in Germantown. Germantown Park Estates right now is trying to work with management and Street Outreach Network to develop a multidisciplinary team to address some of the issues that they continue to see in their community, because they continue to have murders there and need to have solutions. That's what my understanding of what the VCIC would be for, to help to address those particular issues. So I'm going to ask just direct questions. Is that the intention, Chief or Dr. Stoddard, for things like that to happen, so that when we look at Germantown Park Estates, when we look at places like Cider Mill, when we look at places like what we see that are happening all across our more impoverished areas in Germantown, we can get some relief for those residents who continue to feel at siege by the crime that's happening in their communities?
Thank you, Councilmember Rice. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Jones in a minute. But the big part of what the VCIC is intended to do is to recognize that the issues of youth harm and youth violence are not the same across the entire county. We need to understand the nuance, as you alluded to, in the Germantown area. It's very different from what we're seeing in Silver Spring or in Germantown, or sorry, in Gaithersburg. We need to make sure that we appreciate the differences and distinctions in the issues that were emerging. In this analysis, this data analysis, we talk about prioritizing resources and directing your resources. It's not just, which widget goes to which place. It's what widget is most appropriate to deal with which community, and that's part of what we're trying to understand through this VCIC, is by looking at the data and analyzing it, doing linkage analysis, which is an important way to just understand the context of what's happening when we see these violent crimes. And so that's really the intent, but I'll turn it over to Chief Jones to sort of further describe that.
And Councilmember Rice, you're spot on. You are correct that the VCIC would be utilized for this. One thing I will make perfectly clear here is that, these violent incidents that we've had, based upon the investigative leads that we've come up with and the evidence that has been presented, when we go to some neighborhoods and we find 40 shell casings as a result of a shooting. This is not an incident where we have one shot fired. We're now seeing multiple times we're responding to communities and we're finding 40 and 50 rounds on the ground when our officers get there. And what we've been doing is we've been able to do link analysis with those casings. And what's very interesting, the findings is the fact that we find that these individuals who are firing these weapons in other areas of Montgomery County, as well as the Washington, D.C. metropolitan region, whether it be Frederick, whether it be Washington, D.C., or whether it be Prince George's County. And so that's, for us, this link analysis is very important for us to identify those very individuals. Generally very few individuals, but those individuals who are going and terrorizing communities. And we know for a matter of fact that our communities are now terrorized. I have heard way too often about the difference about the way people feel in communities such as Germantown and Gaithersburg than they've ever felt before. So this is definitely something that would be useful to help us do analysis, to be able to identify these individuals who are committing this terror on the streets of Montgomery County.
Thank you, Chief. I find it really interesting that folks always talk about the race, ethnicity of the perpetrator and never talk about the victim. Because guess what? The majority of the victims are people of color as well. That's what we're seeing. I know because I know all the victims, because I sit at their vigils. I go to their funerals and I talk to them over and over again as they cry, talking about the loss of their family members. It's important for us to remember that we are trying to hold a balance. We are not trying to over-police any place. But at the same time, we are also trying to protect those people of color, of lower socioeconomic status, who are just trying to live their lives here in Montgomery County. I will never forget the man who came up to me at the vigil at Plumgar on the basketball court who said, I'm never going to be able to let my child play at this playground again. That's sad because when I first ran for office in 2005, it was Joe Nelson who insisted that I put forth a state bond bill to build a brand new recreation center at Plumgar, because I wanted to bring something to this community that I had seen had not been there for so long. And to have that robbed of the community is not something that is okay. It defies the legacy that I've tried to create in terms of my contribution to the community that I love. And so, yes, I am going to support us to make sure that those people who want to have those lives that can take their kids to a playground and not worry about being shot up is something that is just the same as it is in Potomac or in Bethesda or in Rockville. Because I don't have moms and dads coming to me from some of those areas because I represent Darnestown and North Potomac. And I don't have parents coming to me saying, I'm concerned about my child being shot up at that playground. And they go there and freely play right on 28 without even a thought or care in mind. There should not be a difference. And if we do things right, working with our street outreach network, working with recreation department, doing creative and innovative things, all kinds of ways that we can reach our young people. As you heard from the council president, it is more than just this. If this were the only thing that we were doing, certainly I would say, well, wait, we have to do other things as well. The reality is we spent millions and millions of dollars. We have high school wellness centers that are going into all of our high schools that we just put in the budget. So please don't tell us that we're not doing other things. Please don't tell us that this is not a multifaceted approach. Please don't tell us that we should be focusing on mental health when we have done everything around putting as many mental health counselors in the public and in our schools as possible. Enough. We are doing everything we can, and we owe it to our community to make sure that we try everything we can to ensure that they feel safe. I can't believe that still, in this time frame, we're having conversations like this around saying that we're over-policing or endangering the community, when the true fact is that the community is already in danger and it has nothing to do with the police department. It has everything to do with all of the things, systemic racism. It has to do with all of the historic injustices when it comes to health inequities, all of those things that have nothing to do with police departments. You want to get mad at somebody? Get mad at the people out there who went to January 6th and said that they want to go back to those times. That's who you should be spending your time talking to, not to our police department who's trying to protect some of the very people who we are all saying we're looking to protect.
Thank you. Councilmember Jawando.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Chief and Assistant Chief, thank you guys for being here. Dr. Stoddard, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, sir. Couple questions about the process. One of the things that when I talked to the council president about this, and I appreciate him allowing us to have the discussion, this particular use of funds didn't go to committee. I understand a lot of things didn't go to committee because we had the budget. There's a lot of reasons for that. I was actually involved. This is one where the language that I think you're using, Dr. Stoddard, I want to confirm it, the ARPA funds here, that the Treasury guidance that says that ARPA funds can be used to respond to an increase in gun violence associated with the pandemic. Specifically, funds may be used for, quote, evidence-based practices like focused deterrence, street outreach, violence interrupters, and hospital-based violence intervention models, complete with wraparound services such as behavioral therapy, trauma recovery, job training, education, housing, and relocation services, and financial assistance. That language, a group of local elected officials, we actually met with the White House on several occasions over several months when the ARPA guidance was being drafted and advocated for a pot of funding in ARPA that would be allowed for us to be flexible to use for these types of things. And this is what came from it. So we were all very happy when that happened. The issue that seems like a little bit of a misalignment for me, and I'm very glad to hear the focus on violent crime. That's what I think police should be focused on. I've said that many, many times, and I think there's a role for these types of programs in certain scenarios. But for this pot of funding, well, one, is this the pot of the language you're using in ARPA to justify the allocation of these funds? If not, what are you using? Let's start with that.
That's correct. That is the line item that we're referencing when we submit this, made the submission.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, as someone who was involved in it, it wasn't what we were thinking, you know, when we suggested the language to the White House officials. That being said, there's certainly a use for violent crime analysis, you know, in other scenarios, and I would think it'd be more appropriate is how is this going to continue? This is one-time funding. How's this going to continue? Is this going to be a base budget thing going forward, or what's the plan there?
The thought would be that we review the way this process works with these funds and determine whether there's anything that needs to continue moving forward. I don't want to presuppose that this would continue after this one-time funding. We'd have to, this is why we're using contractors. You know, what's the appropriate resource to address this long-term if there is a need to do it long-term? So there is no presupposition that this is going to be something that gets extended beyond this one-time funding.
So these 4 crime analysts would be contractors on a 1-year contract?
Correct.
Right. Okay. That's yes. Okay. That's helpful. I appreciate that. The interdisciplinary, we all agree. I think you go down this dais, everyone would say we want an interdisciplinary approach. Indeed, in the budget, we did work really hard to fund other responses to addressing the needs of our community that are the root causes of violence and interpersonal conflict. Why in this case, where you cite, particularly for the non-VCIC, did I get that right? Okay, the crime. Why did we not put that towards the actual departments that, like HHS or recreation, and why are we putting it in the money in the police department?
I think in this, I mean, I'll let the. I wasn't as involved in the direct development of exactly what was formulated together. Obviously, it came up through the Community Resources Bureau, which is obviously partners across multiple agencies and identified a bunch of needs. So, to me, I think that some of these are going to ultimately flow to another agency. I think the domestic violence, the Family Justice Center, and those things are going to flow directly to them as a partnership. So I don't. For those other items, I don't think it has to necessarily flow to the police department.
So it could go to the agency.
I think it could. I think it's entirely possible. No, obviously, I think that the midnight basketball thing was something that was. It's based on what's happening in the 3rd District right now, where Mr. Muschieri from Society is partnering with the Police Foundation and others to put together this model event that we want to replicate across. It's been very successful so far. We've heard a lot of good feedback from the 3rd District about this, and so obviously this is something we'd replicate across the county and build out. And in that case, the police that's been a police initiated or organized opportunity, and so that made sense for it to be here. But certainly the piece around the Family Justice Center, I mean, I don't see an issue with it flowing directly to them as opposed to the police department. And the second item, which I believe is the community violence,
the street outreach.
The street outreach. I'd have to look at the actual. I don't see much reason why that couldn't.
So the 2 hospital navigator positions, that's that one. Are those going to be contractors as well, Chief?
Yes.
Or Jock Stoddard, whoever's.
The second item, the 156, the gun violence.
So the hospital, you're talking about the hospital navigator? Yes, those would be contractors' positions.
And those would be, what kind of background are those people? What are those, is there a description for that as of yet, or who are you?
Yeah, I believe these individuals are somewhat in the social worker category. Okay. Based upon my work with the governor's violence coordinating commission, this happens throughout the entire state, particularly in counties such as Prince George's and Baltimore County, as well as Baltimore City, that they have these individuals who are at the hospitals when gunshot victims are brought in. There are a lot of times, again, as everyone seems to want to dismiss somewhat of the police department, of our engagement. And I want to key on that word engagement, because at the end of the day, we are a lot of times the first bodies sent to crime scenes and talking to victims and victims' families. And so we have a direct connection with many of these individuals, and as we work through the issues at hand involving the violence, not only just initially, but to also to develop intelligence and information that says that there is going to be retribution as a result of a violent act that we may have been on the scene of. And so therefore we are and have always been in the business of prevention. And so as much as everyone seems to sometimes put us in a bucket that says the only thing is we respond to crime, one of the main issues that I've always lived on from a policing aspect is to be most engaged in preventing crime. And so that's important for a police department to prevent crime from happening and to keep communities safe. And so many of these other initiatives that, again, as is noted, really goes into a line with community policing, which this council has fully supported.
Right.
And so whether it's gun prevention initiative that basically, working in conjunction with, which we do and are remaining to do, we have an excellent working relationship with the Street Outreach Network. I just spoke with a member of the network this morning at the gun proclamation, and it was noted at that very moment when him and I spoke about the integration of Street Outreach and my gang unit, and how productive that has been in order to make sure that certain crimes are not being committed.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, we all want to get to the place where we have the right balance of prevention activity and enforcement, obviously, and protection of our community. I think, again, I go back to the process, so you're hiring these social workers, they're in the building. Are they then witnesses to that you use as witness to use their information? Like, I just don't know. None of this has been discussed. That's a big concern I have. There was no discussion about any of it. Now, there's an appropriate role that the executive can try things and do things under their purview, but we appropriate the money. This is our chance to ask questions. And so that, just going forward, on especially something like this where you're using the language that you use under the ARPA language that was meant for primarily prevention things, activities. So I have concerns about that. We want to try things that work. We want to be innovative. I understand that. It sounds like you're doing some of this stuff already, like the link analysis, because I think, Chief, you talked about some on your current resources, and so I have also a question about the scale. Now, while we have had an increase in gun violence, I understand that, and it's significant, and for all those families, it's very significant for our community. Thankfully, we haven't had the level of some other major cities and that use these types of focused deterrence and link analysis on a much broader scale, Chicago, Baltimore, other places. Do we not have, that's why I asked about, is this going to be in the base budget? Do we not have the resources now? It sounds like you're already doing link analysis, even going from 30 to 70 gun cases. Do we not have the resources on staff to actually do that type of focused deterrence right now? Is that part of the issue?
Based upon the increased workload, we don't. Because now, again, with gun seizures, we're tracking, with ghost guns. We're tracking ghost guns. We're really trying to track down who are the dealers of these guns.
Right.
And so now my crime analysts, for the few that I have, and, again, we're working across all of the districts, but we're also trying to do link analysis with other jurisdictions. So just the volume of the work, really, this would be an added plus to allow us to be able to focus particularly on the violent crime network. Our current analysts do much more than just violent crime.
Sure.
So I want to just make sure that's clear.
They're broader, and this group would be violent.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, again, I think we do need focus, and I'm wrapping up, Mr. President. We do need focus on violent crime. So I just don't know if this was the right fit for this type of funding, but I understand why this is helpful to have me, at least as one council member,
and I think some of you are hearing from the community to understand why you're putting it forward.
Can I say one
Yes,
thing about the hospital
please.
navigators, because I think that's important. So their role, obviously, Suburban being the trauma center, so that would be the place that would typically receive the victims of gun violence in Montgomery County. The goal there is when the person has experienced gun violence, is one of the best. This is the same thing we learned in the opioid. When someone has had an overdose, is one of the best opportunities to intervene with them, have them understand the potential consequences, and to prevent the incident from escalating into a back and forth that can often happen in these incidents of gun violence where, if it's a conflict between two groups, someone gets shot and they often will end up having some sort of retaliatory action. So the goal there is to have the social worker intercede at the point of the individual victim to try and get them services and link to services that will hopefully prevent future acts of violence associated with that originating incident. And so that's really the goal of having those social workers in the trauma center, to be able to respond to those victims and their victims' family to try and get them services that can help prevent this from escalating further and get the person the resources that they need to address the fact that they've been shot or stabbed or whatever it is from a act of violence.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say is I appreciate that. I think we have had a large discussion over the since I've been on the council, even before, about what is the appropriate role of who does what, who provides those services, because we do have disproportionate contact. It's a fact that there's disproportionate contact, and we have to find ways to minimize that. And I think one of the ways that we minimize that is having the appropriate people respond with the appropriate services that aren't necessarily connected to law enforcement directly, but we want the system to be working together. So, I'd feel more comfortable if some of these things were pulled out and given to the agencies that are best equipped to do them. But I appreciate the answers to the questions. It sounds like you're open to that, though.
I spoke to the executive. He is open to that suggestion. Obviously, his response to this is, number one, we're going to need the resources because we want to address the issues. But number two, the police department has to be involved in some way. But
Absolutely.
You're correct in saying they don't need to be involved in all of these elements, these later elements particularly, where they're going to end up being a pass through for other agencies to hire the social workers, for example. And so I think that's reasonable to suggest.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilmember Katz, followed by Councilmember Friedson, and Councilmember Navarro. And I have a couple comments in the end. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I too want to thank all for expressing their concerns and thoughts on the topic. And I want to, as always, thank Ms. Farag for giving us a great background on this topic as well for your information. And to Dr. Stoddard and Chief Jones, thank you very much, and your entire police departments for everything you're doing. I think this is necessary to mention that these are pilot programs, that about 470,000 plus is supposed to be used to create a violent crime information center with 4 crime analysts that conduct link analysis, track weapons data, and generate violent crime statistical reports for command staff. It includes funding for supplies and training. These efforts are going to help identify individuals who can participate in group violence prevention initiatives. About $157,000 of this money is for gun violence intervention initiatives. This violence prevention is a best practice. It requires partnerships with the Street Outreach Network and Health and Human Services. A portion of this funding is to hire 2 hospital navigator positions at Suburban Hospital that is going to help mediate conflicts during gang and violent situations, and the last $37,500 for youth and family violence prevention. This initiative is going to allow for much broader advertising and outreach regarding the county's domestic violence. We are saying we are going to spend one-time funds, but the reality is this or something else similar to this is ultimately going to be needed for continuing programs that ultimately will be placed in a base budget. Either these programs...
If it abates, then you would eliminate it? I mean,
Well, not
isn't the interesting dynamic here, if it abates, then maybe you don't need it, but isn't it the whole point, if it's abating, it means it's working, and so you would keep it. But if it's not working, I mean, based on what you said, it doesn't really make sense to me, because
clearly if you see no abatement, you would say then these aren't working, and so therefore we don't want to do them. But my point is, we may learn something about,
is for too many analysts? Do we not need as many analysts because the crime has gone down? Maybe we only need 2 permanent analysts. Or maybe, maybe the hospital maybe it really needs to be 3 navigators at the hospital, or maybe it's not just at the hospital. Maybe we need a navigator at the hospital and a navigator somewhere else. And so my point is that, part of this is assessing the actual model that's been proposed to see whether that model is the exact thing that gets replicated or not moving down the road. And so,
yeah. So I think these are ongoing programs. I really do, and I think they're evidence based. I think that there's some real positives. Potentially here. I think coming out of the pandemic, we've talked about the next normal. We have to be willing to try new things. And so I agree with that insofar as using federal funding to do that. I do think and would propose that if we're going to call this a pilot program, it actually has to be a pilot program. And so we need to have an evaluation. I'd like to see the council get a report back, by, July 31st. Of what the metrics are going to be and how we're going to judge success, based on the public health modeling and the public safety analysis that you raised earlier. And then by a date certain in the fall, and I'm open to, a time frame, but it has to be a time frame before the base budget is proposed. The departments are coming to the executive in the early fall with their base budget proposal. So we need to have this analysis at some point somewhat aligned with that process, or else this isn't really a pilot program. So I would suggest those 2 things. We got to know what we're measuring, what we're judging, how we determine success. We don't have to determine it today, but we have to have it so that we can make that decision. And then we need to come back before the Public Safety Committee and or before the full council and assess, is this working or is it not working, and are we going to include it in the budget? If we do that, I'm willing to consider this an actual pilot program. I'm not, it's not the best way to handle it, which would have been during the operating budget, but it's at least a little bit, it makes me a little bit more comfortable. And, with that, I'd be willing to move forward if colleagues were comfortable with that approach.
Okay, I've got Councilmember Navarro, followed by Councilmember Reamer, then Councilmember Joando.
Thank you. So when I look at what's included here, it is very familiar because we have had, a lot of joint committee deliberations on where this council, with input from the community, given an opportunity to redefine, and then of course COVID comes and just redefines a lot of things for you. But when I look at this, it is aligned with many of the things that we have talked about vis-a-vis how do we, when we talk about reimagining public safety, how do we create some sort of a seamless connection between police activities and, positive youth development, looking at innovative ways of being more authentic and culturally authentic about connecting, especially with victims. Because, when Councilmember Rice was talking about what we've seen in Germantown, and we know that we are in a crisis. We definitely are in a crisis. Side note, I really do believe that the Street Outreach Network workers, the staff, are like some of the most, extraordinary unsung heroes, because what they're doing out there is kind of quiet work, but it's so critical. And when I have someone who works in the county waiting outside the door of my office because they wanted to speak with, with somebody in my staff who's bilingual about a 12-year-old niece that was missing, that is involved with some, kids who have guns and things like that in the Latino community. Well, this is real, and it's become such a crisis that somehow we just seem to want to just gloss over it, but we can't. So when I read this, I'm a little bit confused, because I'm like, why are we spending all this time talking about this? We said that we wanted to align the police work more closely with community policing, with positive positive development strategies. We want it to be innovative. And to me, that's what these funds allow. It does allow for some innovation. I hope it's not just a pilot, because to be honest, these particular kinds of interventions are important. They're innovative, but I do hope that we incorporate that. And I hope that we provide some additional capacity to Street Outreach Network and to our rec department, et cetera, to build those bridges with the police department while we do all the other work that this council has been extraordinarily busy doing during this whole entire term. And so I'm sorry, but yes, I am a little bit surprised that we are spending all this time, having all these discussions as if we haven't analyzed this ad nauseum during all of these joint committees. And I am beyond, exhausted. Every time I get a notification about another shooting, stabbing, it is just heart-wrenching, and it's not letting up. So to sit here and pretend that this is an academic exercise, it's not. And to sit here and pretend that we have not all in good faith really worked really hard to systemically begin to address some of these issues, I think it's wrong. So I also wanted to associate myself with colleagues who are expressing that, right? That yes, we're not clueless, we're not tone deaf. We've heard it, we know it. It's in our communities. It's people that look like me who have, for decades as I've been doing this, have been saying, Señora Navarro, por favor, ayúdenos. Ayúdenos. Because the victimization in these communities is real. Now, then it's up to us as policymakers to make sure that we're addressing both sides. Disproportionality, all of these issues that are very, very real, while getting to that sweet spot of how do we truly reimagine public safety? So again, I'm just a little surprised because we appropriated a lot of money during this budget that we just finished, trying to find some balance. We took some bold steps. The expansion of wellness centers to all high schools was a pretty bold step. And I got to tell you right now, jurisdictions around the state are scratching their heads, starting to catch up and figure things out. At least in Montgomery County, they look to us for some best practices, right? So, yes, fiscal responsibility, obviously as chair of GO and fiscal policy, of course I want that. However, we figured it out, that's great. But if we get to use ARPA money to innovate and to help us further what we've agreed should be our policy positions, and I think it's a well-spent funds. And if it's going to save lives and it's going to protect people, so be it. I think it is really important. So thank you, and I will be supporting this.
Thank you. Councilmember Reamer, followed by Councilmember Tawando, and then colleagues, we still have a lot more to get through this afternoon, so let's try to press ahead. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for all this great conversation. Appreciate my colleagues' comments. I guess I'm just taking away a few things here. First of all, to me, many of these are things that are pretty urgently needed. More athletics programs for kids. Hospital navigator positions to work with crime victims. These are things that are responsive to the immediate issue that we're experiencing in this community. And this came forward to us from our police department. That's how it came to us, and that is why it was structured the way it is. Councilmember Friedson has made the point that it would be useful to have metrics so we can evaluate effectiveness here. And Councilmember Tawando has talked a bit about how, for example, Street Outreach Network is typically an HHS, and Dr. Stoddard, you said that you'd be open to doing it that way too. So, I guess I'm not sure that I have a additional contribution to make here, other than it's the nature of a proposal that's coming to the full council without having had time for committee deliberations, so we're having to do it here. And I do think that having a more data-informed strategy for violent crime could be helpful to all of our initiatives, so on and so forth. So, okay, thanks.
Thanks. Councilmember Tawando, then I'd like to make a couple points, and then let's try to move on.
Yeah, appreciate it. We all want the same thing here, and I'm really trying hard to focus on that and not get into the rhetorical side of it. We do have to do same things at once. Can we move the HHS money out of the $156,000 for gun violence and get that to HHS, and then they part? Okay.
We have no objections to that.
No objection to that from the administration. So, and then the $37,500 to the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council. Can we logistically do that, or where does that operate out of?
Well, the only thing I would state here is, in domestic violence cases, we are often, again, on the front lines.
Yeah. Okay.
The Family Justice Center comes into place afterwards.
Okay.
So, it's not that it's logistically impossible, but I think it's, when we look at what are our strategies in order to prevent domestic violence, we play a major role with the Domestic Violence Coordinating Commission as a part of it, but it's not solely, that's not what that funding is solely for, but it's more about outreach as well. So everybody plays a role in it to include us. So I would just make that point.
Yeah, no, that's what I was asking you before I made a motion. And so the only thing I'll do, Mr. President, and then Jason and Ms. Carey and I have talked about the 3-on-3. My knees hold up, I'm gonna sign up. So I'll see you for that. And I think that's a good program, the Midnight Madness that we used to do. So I would like to move, Mr. President, that we would move the 156 for gun violence prevention that compart with the street outreach network component with the hospital navigators out of MCPD to HHS.
Moved by Councilmember Jawando, seconded by Councilmember Reamer. Is there any discussion?
I have a question. Does it really matter? I mean, if you left it in as it is today, and you all decided that HHS would be doing the contract, what's the difference?
It doesn't. From my perspective, we want to make sure we have the resources. That's the executive branch perspective. It will not functionally make much of a difference to us. And so whatever the council wishes to do on this matter, it will not functionally make a difference.
Well, candidly, I want the money to be appropriated. I don't know that it really does matter whether or not we do it the way that this motion is indicating. And as far as I'm concerned, the money can stay in the way it is now. But I certainly will go along with the will of the body.
All right, I'm just going to make a couple comments here. I'm really frustrated by this conversation. I was out there on Friday night, and the people that are on the front lines doing this work 24/7 are exhausted. And what they are seeing is something that they haven't seen in more than 15 years. And we're discussing process and analytics, which are important, but I hope they're not watching this video. Because this is entirely intended to provide support for these folks that are on the ground, that are working 24/7, sacrificing times away from their families to be able to provide support to kids who are just trying to go out and live their lives. 727 guns have been confiscated in the last 6 months, 523 the entire previous year. If it takes moving this motion in order to be able to pass this particular legislation, then that's fine. But we need to be able to advance this money so that it can get out to the people that are doing the actual work on the ground, trying to provide support for these kids. And we cannot disengage. We have to acknowledge that law enforcement absolutely does play a really important role with the situation that's on the ground right now. We have to ensure transparency and accountability. Next week, we're going to be voting on the Police Advisory Board members. And I am confident that we will continue to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. But these funds need to be out in the community right now. So I will support this motion because, as noted by the county executive's office, it doesn't really matter where it goes, just as long as it gets out into the community, and that's fine with me. But I do think that we need to allocate these resources and address what's happening on the ground right now. So we have a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Oh, Councilmember Rice.
I'd like to be recognized, sir, because, look, I'm going to tell you right now, It's crazy to me that we just allocated over $20 million and didn't have a single discussion about it, but we have a couple $100,000, and we've now been talking about this ad nauseum about where it goes. I hope that people are paying attention. I hope that people who are voting are paying attention. Real talk. And these are my friends and colleagues, but this is ridiculous that we are having a discussion about some kind of process when it should have been automatic and everybody's damn hand should have gone up, period. I got people dying in Germantown asking for help. Asking for help. And we're going to be talking about process and where it is. Oh, it's under police. It's under HHS. It's under Street Outreach Network. Who gives a damn? We need to make sure that the programs are there, period. Shame on us for going to this kind of discussion level about something that's supposed to be helping people. That is not what I signed up for.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. All right, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. That is Councilmember Joando, Councilmember Reamer, Councilmember Hucker, and myself. All those opposed. Councilmember Navarro, Councilmember Rice, Councilmember Friedson, Councilmember Glass, Councilmember Katz. The motion fails. We have 727. Can I get a motion to accept the appropriation? So moved by Councilmember Katz, seconded by Councilmember Rice. All those in favor of this special appropriation, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous among all those present. Thank you very much for coming forward to us today. All right, that moves us on to the next item on the agenda, which is a district council session. This requires some setup, so please bear with me. The council granted a request for oral argument on May 10th. Each side will have, so we have the representatives from the hearing examiner here. Ms. Nadeau, I'm going to ask you to please provide some context and overview because I have to collect my thoughts here. So please, if you can provide an overview of this, I'd appreciate it.
So this is a local map amendment. As you know, local map amendments go to the hearing examiner. The hearing examiner holds a hearing and then sends a report and recommendation over to the council to either approve, remand, or deny. A couple months ago, we received a request for oral argument, which the council granted, so that's what we are here for today. The parties each will have a total of 10 minutes to speak, and they've each chosen to reserve some of that time for rebuttal, and the timer will be up in front of you all. In terms of process, there's a couple steps here. So after I go through this, the hearing examiner will give a brief overview of her report and recommendation, and then the parties will speak, and when they're done, council members will have an opportunity to ask questions of either council staff, the hearing examiner, or either party. And after that, the resolution that's in the packet, as is practice, the hearing examiner sends over a resolution that's consistent with the report and recommendation. So the one before you is the resolution that would approve the application and is consistent with the terms that were in the initial report. If a council member would like to instead deny or remand the application, then you can make a motion to do so, and then the council will move on that motion and take a straw vote at the end of today so that council staff has time to draft a revised resolution, which will be voted on next week.
Thank you very much. So we have, colleagues, the opportunity before us today to decide to vote to support the hearing examiner's recommendation, which we would do in a roll call vote, or we can choose, if we are not prepared to take that vote today, to defer this to the following week after we receive the information presented by both parties. Those are at least two options before us, and there is a third, right, Ms. Nadeau?
So yeah, the options are to approve, deny, or remand.
Thank you. And I'd like to hear from our hearing examiner to just sort of set this up as well.
Yeah, very quickly, you have on the screen a vicinity map just showing, orienting you to the site. The road to the north of the site is Strathmore Avenue. The major road on photo left is Rockville Pike. And then Georgetown Prep, it's also proximate to the Grosvenor Metro. The town of Garrett Park is to the east. You can move it forward. Okay, and this is just an outline of the area to be rezoned. Is it red? Parcel A, the development shown just above Parcel A is a retirement home for sisters. Parcel B is occupied by Academy of the Holy Cross, and then the other part of Parcel A is land that is going to be part of this development. Okay, and this is a blow-up of an excerpt from the floating zone plan. And what it calls for is 125 single-family dwelling units to the east of that central, or to the west, I'm sorry, of that central road, and the retirement community of 114 or 145 beds is going to be east of the road. You're going to be hearing, I suspect, about traffic, one of the items, and during the hearing, just to highlight for you, EYA did do a traffic study and offered it would require mitigation. And the mitigation is changing the signal light, timing of the signal light at Rockville Pike, installing a traffic signal at that Center Road A, which is the entrance to the shared entrance to the community and the school, and installing a westbound 150-foot left turn lane onto the site. EYA has offered to do these. When it goes to preliminary plan, this will be in a different policy area, so they would not be required. And that's all. My role at this point is to let the parties argue, and I may jump in if there's anything outside the record that is referred to. I will prevent that from happening. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to turn now to the district council member to make some opening comments, or after the presentations. Got it. Okay. So if the two parties could please introduce themselves.
My name is Doug Burden. I requested the oral argument.
Thank you, Mr. Burden.
Erin Gerard with Miles and Stockbridge on behalf of the applicants.
Thank you, Ms. Gerard. So who goes first? I believe, yes, Mr. Burden.
Thank you. As I mentioned, my name is Doug Burden. I live adjacent to the proposed development. Next slide, please. The applicant is asking you all to rezone two parcels that for over 50 years have been zoned a particular way. Rezoning will allow more housing and a bigger senior living center than currently is allowed or exists there. The impact or the burden of this rezoning, mainly in increased traffic on Strathmore, will fall on the surrounding neighborhoods. I will address two issues that support remanding this issue back to the hearing officer. I'm not asking for denial at this point, just remand for further fact-finding so that you all can be fully and accurately informed. The first issue is unanswered questions about the existing traffic study that undermine any purported finding that this proposed development will not detrimentally impact the traffic on the already congested Strathmore Avenue. And second, the failure of the application in the evidence to prove that rezoning these particular parcels will serve the goal of enhancing traffic use. Next slide, please. This is the traffic study, one of the traffic studies referenced before that the staff, planning, and hearing officer relied on, and most of my slides come from this report. Next slide, please. This is the site you saw before. I've added highlighting of that central driveway. This is the existing one that connects the academy with Strathmore. You'll notice there's a slight offset with where the entrance is in Stillwater. Next slide, please. This is the proposal you just saw. I've added more highlighting. As she mentioned, the central entrance is moved eastward, and that entrance will serve the academy, will also serve the senior living facility and at least some of those townhouses. There'll be added another driveway, the one in red,
that will service only the townhouses. Next slide, please. Go ahead and skip that one. And the next one, please. Thank you. All right, this table is the crux of my presentation. What this is an analysis from the traffic report of existing conditions at these key intersections and what the conditions are projected to be under the traffic analysis with the proposal in place. So if you look at the second line down, it's the Strathmore-Stillwater Avenue. That's the current entrance to Holy Cross Academy, which is the source of much of the traffic problems. The analysis showed that the congestion at that intersection was 445 seconds. The standard you see to the left is 71 seconds. That means this intersection is over 6 times the standard. If you look over to the right to the total future conditions, that's with this proposed development online, the main driveway gets pushed to that center site driveway, and the projected congestion is only 10.7 seconds. So it went from existing 445 to projected 10.7 seconds. Next slide, please. And this is the discussion of the causes of the existing delays. They say mainly left turning into and out of the driveway for the school. Also, there are right turns in both ways. And they point to this offset with Stillwater as part of the problem. And then down below, they talk about what's going to address this is rerouting the existing driveway, main driveway, to the center and eliminating that offset. One thing not mentioned here, surprisingly, is, and it might actually help traffic some, is the exit from the school. They're going to add a left turn lane. So there's to be a left turn lane, a right turn lane, and then a turn into the school. That might actually help, but it doesn't account for a 6 times over the congestion limit. Next slide. Next slide, please. You heard about the traffic light that will go at the center driveway in Strathmore. The thing with that is it's not been approved yet. It'll have to be approved by the state DOT. And even if it is approved, there's no assurance that it will address this congestion there. Currently, the Academy pays for a police officer to direct traffic during the morning and afternoon, and there's still traffic going back to Rockville Pike and well into Garrett Park. So there's no assurance that a traffic light, even if approved and happens, will address this problem. Next slide, please. Now, this really important thing about comparing the existing with the projected congestion there. These are the numbers that I've circled in red that of the cars turning into and out of that driveway. Numbers 111, 49, 147, 202. Those are the cars during this count. That's under the existing conditions. Next slide, please. Now, this is the future with the development in place, projections. If you look at box 3, the numbers are essentially the same, 111, 214, 51, 160. The same number of cars, but somehow with existing, it's 445-second delay. With this projected proposed plan is down to 10.7 with the same number of cars. This offset that they talk about, which is box 2, there's 0 cars used going straight from either from Stillwater into the driveway or out of the driveway onto Stillwater. Next slide, please. Now, this makes no sense to me. This is the technical attachments to the traffic report. These are the inputs and the modeling that explains how they come up with the congestion delay. I don't know what this means. I asked the DOT, state, and county to testify about this. They refused to do so. The hearing officer would not let me subpoena them. So we have this. I don't know what it means. On remand, this could be analyzed so that we can understand how these numbers came up. Next 2 slides, please. Okay, go ahead, one more. Let's look at what the hearing officer said real quick about this. Next slide, sorry. He said the same that the staff said. that the traffic consultant suggested that moving these driveways is going to take care of this congestion. Next 2 slides, please. Sorry, one more. All right. And what he concluded that as on an instinctual level, he understood the neighborhood, but he never addressed the facts about the disappearing congestion. And that's, again, what I think needs to be addressed on remand. Next slide. Real quick on the transit issue. One more. Oh, yeah, I think you're going the wrong way. Keep going. Yeah, that's it. On the transit issue, as you all know, the master plan and general policy supports putting increased housing near transit centers. That's what this is noted here on this slide. Next slide. Same thing, advancing the idea of housing near transit. One more. His proof, what the hearing officer put in the report was testimony from Brandywine, which is a company running the residential facility, that she thought that their employees likely would use public transportation. Next slide, please. What's not in the report is this from the traffic report, which says the site is expected to generate a minimal amount of transit trips. So if you're going to rezone this based on proximity to transit, and the traffic report says the transit use is expected to be minimal, then why are we rezoning this? So again, on remand, this is something that could be addressed. So that's what I'm asking, that prior to making this rezoning decision that will burden the local neighborhoods and the people that live there, to remand it back to the hearing officer for further fact-finding so that you are fully informed about the traffic issues, the transit use, and other speculative aspects of the project. Thank you.
Thank you. And if Ms. Nadeau, I have this correct, Ms. Gerard has a chance to rebuttal now. Ms. Gerard, yeah.
Correct, and I'd asked for my time to be divided 5 and 5. If I go over my initial 5, that's fine. It'll probably be more like 7 to 3, just so you know. I'd like to hit most of the points off the bat. So thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. As I mentioned, I'm Erin Gerard on behalf of the applicants. This application proposes much-needed housing and an assisted living facility in a red policy area close to Metro. By most accounts, this is the type of development that's desirable by the county. However, as of today, this application will have been pending for over 10 months, and this is only the first step in the entitlement process. As noted in our April 19th letter, which is in your packet, circle 4 to 6, we felt strongly that oral argument was not warranted in this case. The review process for local map amendments is rigorous and invites extensive community participation, and the system worked here. By his own admission, Mr. Burden was deeply involved in the LMA proceedings, corresponding directly with relevant agencies, asking numerous questions, many of which he continues to ask today, and obtaining detailed answers. He fully participated in the OZA hearing, and he was able to cross-examine the applicant's witnesses, including their traffic consultant. His concerns have therefore been raised to and analyzed by all reviewing agencies, which agencies have the technical expertise to properly evaluate Mr. Burden's claims. This back and forth is clearly evident from the record, including the analysis and questions and answers you can find, for example, on circles 97 through 100 in your packet, 106 through 123, just as an example. At the end of the day, all of Mr. Burden's questions have been addressed, and none of the relevant agencies found any valid basis for his concerns. In addition to these procedural safeguards, as you know, there are standards by which issues such as traffic impacts are evaluated in the county, which come out of the growth policy that the council adopts every 4 years. This analysis can be very technical in nature, and that's why there are experts in the private sector that prepare the reports and experts in the various state and county agencies who independently review them. As noted by the hearing examiner, while Mr. Burden's concerns may be real and sincere, they are not grounded in actual evidence or expertise, and the weight of the evidence in this matter, including the opinions of the applicant's expert, technical staff, the planning board, and the hearing examiner, greatly outweigh Mr. Burden's personal opinions about traffic impacts. To dive into the details, if you look at figure 2 on circle 10, or it was also up on the screen, exhibit 62 from the hearing examiner, you will see the existing conditions of the property. Most relevant to these proceedings, as has been noted, you can see that the existing entrance drive for the Academy of the Holy Cross is offset from Stillwater Avenue to the north. This offset is problematic in and of itself from a staff traffic standpoint, as it makes much harder for vehicles to navigate the various turning movements that are going on at that intersection. Additionally, the school currently only has one egress lane, so cars trying to go right must stack behind the cars waiting to go left. As shown on Figure 5 on Circle 19 of your packet, the proposed development would not only align that intersection, but also move all of the school traffic away from it, placing it in a new main entrance to the west that has 2 egress lanes. This in and of itself will drastically improve upon existing conditions. As part of the LMA, 2 different traffic studies were submitted. The original was submitted on December 18, 2020 and reviewed under the old subdivision staging policy because the new one had not yet been adopted. While this study was performed in accordance with LATR guidelines and the Planning Board's policy regarding traffic counts during the pandemic, MCDOT and State Highway Administration, I assume you know the acronyms here, requested further analysis using pre-pandemic traffic counts with conservative growth factors applied. The applicants therefore prepared and submitted a supplemental analysis. And that one was the one that showed that a new left-bound turn lane on Strathmore Avenue at the project and school's new main entrance, as well as the installation of a traffic signal at this intersection, would greatly improve upon existing conditions. So these measures, in concert with the ones that I've already explained, including the alignment of the intersection and movement of school traffic away from it, will drastically improve traffic conditions. And those are the referenced delays. They are significant. I can tell you in my 20-some years of practicing land use in this county, I've never seen a traffic report that actually reported in a better situation after development. But that is what the data showed, and that was vetted by both the Montgomery County Department of Transportation and the State Highway Administration, and technical staff for park and planning, all of whom found it to be valid. Finally, I wanted to note that in the new growth and infrastructure policy, this property actually moved from an orange policy into a red policy area, given its proximity to transit. Therefore, the future traffic study, which we hope will be done as part of the preliminary plan should the LMA be approved, will focus not so much on vehicular counts, but on the multimodal environment, which is the policy that I'm sure you're all intimately familiar with after having just adopted it. With regard to the failure of evidence to prove that this particular rezoning will serve the goal of enhancing transit use in the county, there is no requirement that be proven to approve an LMA. If you look at the findings required in section 59.7.2.1.e of the zoning ordinance, there's nothing about that in there. However, the property is within 0.6 miles of the Grosvenor Metro Station, and as I noted, was recently moved to a red policy area for that fact. Through the growth and infrastructure policy and other recently adopted plans and policies of the county, there's been an expressed desire to concentrate growth in areas such as this, and approval of the LMA would achieve that objective. Additionally, during the hearing, before the hearing examiner, Mr. Burden conceded that the basis for his analysis or opinion that there would be a lack of metro ridership was based on his personal observations as a resident of Symphony Park. However, on cross-examination, it came to light that Mr. Burden had only lived in Symphony Park since March of 2020. As we all know, that was when the pandemic was hitting its prime, and I think that we all know that metro ridership has not yet really recovered from the pandemic. As far as the reference to low transit usage in the traffic study, that is something that we standardly put in because we want to be very conservative. So when we're out evaluating traffic impacts, we sure don't want to over-assume metro ridership. As far as the reliance on the traffic signal, the provision of the police officer, and the acquisition of right-of-way, which Mr. Burden didn't really hit on in his testimony, but did in his letter, we just wanted to note that as far as the traffic signal, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of the process to say that it should have been included as a binding element at this point in time. As you know, local map amendments are very conceptual in nature and establish the larger parameters for development. More technical review comes with site and preliminary plan following the rezoning. With regard to the traffic signal and turn lane, I would direct your attention to Circle 132, where Kwesi Woodruff of SHA explicitly stated that the improvements would be required as part of the access permit, but they were waiting on further information at the next stage to properly evaluate it. With regard to the police officer, none of the studies assumed that the police officer was there or would continue to be there. So none of the findings are based on the presence or absence of that police officer. And with regard to the off-site sidewalk, while the applicant will be exploring that as part of the preliminary plan, again, it was not a basis for any of the findings of technical staff, planning board, or the hearing examiner. So with that, I'll reserve the last 2 minutes of my time. Thank you.
Mr. Burden, I believe you have 1 minute left in your time.
All right, thank you. As to my testimony, I did have a full chance to testify, and I testified about 445 seconds being reduced to 10.7 seconds with no change in the traffic counts. I testified about the traffic report saying it's minimal use, and that's not in the report either. So I testified, but it wasn't all heard. The experts that were referred to, they avoided testifying at this hearing, and I was not able to subpoena them. So, you know, they looked at it, but they didn't follow through at the evidentiary hearing, which would have gotten to you. It was not my personal opinion. I showed you facts from the traffic report of, again, 445 seconds down to 10.7. That's not my personal opinion. That's the fact in their traffic report. The transit use is not my personal opinion. That's their statement from the traffic report. The offset between the existing driveway and still water, I showed you the traffic that's expected to use that, 0 in the projected. It's not going to solve the problem. The problem is at the center entrance.
Mr. Burden, I'm sorry, your time is up.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Gerard, you have 2 minutes left in your time.
And I don't think I need all that. I covered most of it when I spoke. I mean, the fact of the matter is that Mr. Burden has been raising the same issues since the inception of this application some 10 months ago. They've been fully vetted by everyone. It's explained in the hearing examiner's report. You can see the questions and answers in your packets. So with that, we would request that the council not only act to approve it, but act to approve it today to allow this to move forward, because we've been stopped in the water waiting for this to occur. Thank you.
Thank you both for your presentations. I know there's a lot more that went into those 10 minutes for each of you, and I know this is an important issue on many levels. I'm now going to yield to our district council member representing this part of the county, Councilmember Friedson, to make some comments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for being here, for the time that you've taken, the time to get to this point. As the district representative for this area, one of the 5 council members here on the dais who represent the neighborhood, I just want to start and express the great respect that I have for the time and effort that has gone into the hearings on this LMA. Obviously, a tremendous amount of energy and effort has gone into it. I'm aware that the town of Garrett Park Estates, White Flint Civic Association all testified in opposition to the application, and I value that feedback and I take it very seriously. Today, we have to determine if all conditions have been met to grant approval of the application for the local map amendment to the 1992 North Bethesda Garrett Park Master Plan. We must determine if all conditions for approval of a floating zone were met according to the record provided to us by the hearing examiner. We can't base the decision on anything else. For those that may be watching at home or here in the audience, the hearing examiner has found that the applicant met all the conditions for approval: conformance with the master plan, compatibility, adequate public facilities in the form of meeting the LATR tests, compliance with purpose of a floating zone, and the other related factors. Mr. Burden, you argued passionately, and I think it was prudent for us to have granted the oral arguments. I appreciate the fact that we had the opportunity to hear your testimony directly. Your primary argument is that some of the traffic mitigation elements discussed by the traffic study engineer are not binding elements. But we have heard from the applicant that these mitigation elements, specifically a traffic light and a new left turn lane, can't be required of the applicant because they're dependent upon future approval of SHA. You also state there's no evidence that this proposed project will enhance transit use in the county or in the master plan area, but the property in question is very close to Grosvenor Strathmore Metro Station and the Garrett Park train station. Due to these very factors, we recently added this area to the Growth and Infrastructure Plan Red Policy area, as was noted earlier in the testimony, where we have determined transit-oriented growth and density as the desired context of our overall growth patterns and environmental sustainability considerations. So for those reasons, I feel that I have no choice, I believe we have no choice, but to agree with the hearing examiner and approve the application. I know this comes, I'm sure, as a disappointment to some, but I think it's our duty and obligation to approve or disapprove an application based on finite and well-defined sets of criteria, and I believe in this instance that criteria has been met. So with that, I will yield back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Nadeau, is there anything you'd like to add just from a staff perspective to provide any help for my guidance for my colleagues as we deliberate?
Sure. I can reiterate the necessary findings that the district council must make, which Councilmember Friedson highlighted correctly. They're on page 2 of the memo. So to grant a local map amendment, the council has to find that the floating zone plan will conform with the master plan and general plan, further the public interest, satisfy the intent and standards of the proposed zone, be compatible with existing and approved adjacent development, generate traffic that does not exceed the critical lane volume or volume capacity ratio under the LATR guidelines, and when applying a non-residential floating zone to a previously residential zone, not adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. So those are the 6 factors that the council looks to when deciding whether to grant or deny a local map amendment.
Okay, so thank you all very much again for providing your testimony. This is as close as I'm going to get to feeling like Judge Judy. Hearing the testimony from both of you was really compelling. I appreciate Councilmember Friedson's comments. I agree with his comments. And so do we need a motion, Ms. Nadeau, to get to the roll call vote, or do we automatically go to the roll call vote?
You can go ahead and go to the roll call vote.
Okay, colleagues, I'm looking at you. Are you prepared for a roll call vote on this issue? Could you clarify the vote, Ms. Nadeau, just to be absolutely sure we know what we're voting on?
Yes. So this vote would be to approve the local map amendment application consistent with the hearing examiner's report and recommendation for approval.
And the resolution that's before you in the packet, you're voting on that resolution.
Great. Colleagues? All right, I'm seeing the majority of nods, so let's go ahead and go to the roll call vote.
Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Katz votes yes. Mr. Jawando?
Yes.
Mr. Jawando votes yes. Mr. Reamer?
Yes.
Mr. Reamer votes yes. Mr. Hucker?
Yes.
Mr. Hucker votes yes. Ms. Navarro?
Yes.
Ms. Navarro votes yes. Mr. Rice?
Yes.
Mr. Rice votes yes. Mr. Friedson?
Yes.
Mr. Friedson votes yes. Mr. Glass?
Yes.
Mr. Glass votes yes. Mr. Albornoz?
Yes.
Mr. Albornoz votes yes.
All right, let the record show that passes unanimously. Thank you all very much for coming forward today. We now move on. These are just announcements and introductions, colleagues, so I will get through these quickly so we can go to closed session. Item B is an announcement of the public hearing for the zone text amendment ZTA 2201, antenna on existing structure. Use standards will be rescheduled from July 12th, 2022 to September 13th, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. Item C is an introduction, ZTA 2204, commercial uses, light vehicle sales and rental. Public hearing is scheduled for July 26, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. Item D is also an introduction, ZTA 2205, signs. Public hearing is scheduled for July 26, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. Item E is an introduction of ZTA 2206, exemptions, historic resources, allowed uses. Public hearing is scheduled also for July 26, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. And then finally, item F, which is also an introduction, ZTA 2207, residential multi-use low density R30 optional method development. Public hearing is scheduled for July 26, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. Those are now all officially introduced into the record. Now, colleagues, I need a motion to go into closed session to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice pursuant to Maryland Code General Provision Article 305B7 to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice, and 305B8 to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. Topic is all pending litigation involving the county. Can I get a motion to go into closed session? Moved by Council Vice President Glass, seconded by Councilmember Katz. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.